We are taught that the story of civilization is a short one. We are taught that for millions of years, the Earth was a wild, silent garden, inhabited only by animals and primitive hominids who gazed at the stars with empty, uncomprehending eyes. We are told that intelligence is a recent accident, a spark that ignited only 6,000 years ago on the fertile banks of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. We call this the beginning. We call Sumer the cradle of civilization. We believe that before the first clay tablet was inscribed, there was nothing but the silence of the Paleolithic void. But this narrative is a lie. It is a comforting bedtime story we tell ourselves to feel special, to feel unique, to feel like the masters of this world. What if Sumer was not the beginning, but a chaotic, desperate attempt to reconstruct something that had already been lost? What if the first great civilization did not arise 6,000 years ago, but 6 million years ago, or 60 million years? What if the oldest civilization on Earth wasn't human at all? We are not looking for lost tribes or forgotten kings. We are looking for the architects. We are looking for the deep-time entities who terraformed this planet, who laid the stone grids of the world, and who vanished so completely that the Earth itself has digested their bones. Today, we are going to shatter the timeline. We are going to look into the geological abyss and ask the question that mainstream science refuses to whisper: who owned this planet before us? To understand the scale of this mystery, we must first understand the scale of time. If the history of Earth were compressed into a 24-hour clock, human history, everything from the first stone tool to the smartphone in your hand, would occupy less than the last fraction of the very last second. We assume that in all the billions of hours that came before that final second, nothing looked back at the universe. We assume that intelligence is a singularity. But the Earth has a memory, and sometimes it reveals things that should not exist. Let us travel back, not thousands of years, but billions. In the pyrophyllite mines of Ottosdal, South Africa, miners have extracted hundreds of metallic spheres from rock strata that is 2.8 billion years old. These are not natural concretions. Some of them have 3 perfectly parallel grooves etched around their equator. They are balanced with a precision that rivals modern ballistics. They are made of a nickel-steel alloy that does not occur naturally. They are harder than steel. And they were embedded in rock that formed when the Earth was supposedly a toxic wasteland populated only by single-celled algae. Who manufactured a balanced metallic sphere 2.8 billion years ago? Evolution tells us there were no hands to hold tools. Geology tells us there was no fire to smelt metal. And yet, the object exists. It is a ghost in the machine of history. Move forward in time, but stay deep in the rock. In the coal seams of Russia and the United States, miners have found iron pots, brass bells, and complex gear-like mechanisms embedded in coal that is 300 million years old. Coal is formed from ancient forests that were buried and compressed over eons. These artifacts were not dropped down a mine shaft yesterday. They were dropped into the swamp of the Carboniferous period. They were there before the dinosaurs. These are what we call out-of-place artifacts. Science dismisses them as anomalies or hoaxes because the alternative is too terrifying to contemplate. If these objects are real, then everything we know about the progression of life is wrong. It implies that the Earth has hosted an industrial capacity long before a mammal ever walked the surface. It implies that we are walking on top of a graveyard that is miles deep. This brings us to a terrifying scientific concept known as the Silurian hypothesis. proposed not by conspiracy theorists, but by astrophysicists from NASA and the University of Rochester. They asked a simple question. If an industrial civilization existed on Earth millions of years ago, would we be able to find it? The answer is a chilling no. The Earth is a violent, recycling engine. It does not preserve, it erases. If humanity were to disappear tomorrow, our cities would crumble in centuries. Our steel would rust to dust in thousands of years. Our plastics would break down into microscopic polymers. In 10 million years, plate tectonics would subduct our continents, melting the crust into magma. In 50 million years, there would be absolutely no trace of our skyscrapers, our roads, or our computers. What would remain? Only subtle chemical signatures in the sediment, a spike in carbon, a trace of synthetic isotopes, a layer of plastiglomerates. And that is exactly what we find in the deep geological record. We find sudden, unexplained spikes in temperature and carbon that mimic exactly what an industrial society does to a planet. We see the fingerprints of a global civilization, but we cannot see the bodies. So, if the bodies are gone and the cities are dust, what is left? What can survive the grinding mill of geological time? Stone. Only stone survives. And not just any stone, but stone manipulated with a technology that defies our understanding. Look at the megalithic sites of the world, from the fortress of Sacsayhuaman in Peru to the Osirian in Egypt, from the Yangshan quarry in China to the polygonal walls of Japan. We see the same impossible engineering. We see polygonal masonry, massive, irregular blocks of granite and diorite, some weighing hundreds of tons, fitted together like a complex 3D puzzle.
There is no mortar. The joints are so precise that not even a microbe can pass between them. The stones are not cut. They look as if they were softened. They look like they were molded like clay and then re-hardened. Official history tells us that these were built by disparate human cultures, the Incas, the Egyptians, using copper chisels and stone hammers. But this is an engineering impossibility. You cannot cut granite with copper. You cannot lift a 1,000-ton block with hemp rope. And most importantly, why did cultures separated by vast oceans and thousands of years use the exact same anti-seismic construction technique? They didn't invent it. They inherited it. This global network of megaliths is not the work of the Inca or the pharaohs. It is the shattered remnant. It is the skeleton of a global infrastructure left behind by the civilization zero. The human cultures we study simply found these ruins. They built their mud brick houses on top of these indestructible foundations. They worshiped these structures because they could not understand how they were made. They claimed them as their own, just as we claim the land we live on. But the megaliths are the silent witnesses to a time before us. They are not temples. They are beacons. They are the survey markers of a planet that was once owned by someone else. This leads us to the most radical idea of all, the Great Reset. The history of Earth is a history of apocalypses. We know of 5 great mass extinctions, times when the slate was wiped clean. We know of the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. We know of the great dying of the Permian. But what if these were not accidents? What if some of these events were the end of a technological era? Imagine civilization zero. They are not human. Perhaps they evolved from the wise nocturnal eyes of the Troodon, or perhaps they were a biology we cannot even classify, a silicon-based intelligence or hive mind. They reach a peak of technology that allows them to manipulate matter itself. They build the megaliths, they map the stars, they harmonize the planet's energy. And then the catastrophe hits. A solar micronova, a magnetic pole shift, a war that cracks the crust. The surface of the Earth is sterilized, the atmosphere turns to fire, then to ice. Civilization zero is annihilated. Their biological matter decays, their machines rust, their cities are ground into sand by the glaciers. The Earth reclaims everything. Millions of years pass. The ecosystem slowly recovers. New species crawl out of the mud. Primates evolve. They stand up, they look around, and they find the stones. They find the Great Pyramid, stripped of its casing stones, humming with residual energy. They find the wall of Baalbek. They find the ruins of Tiwanaku. They look at these works with the eyes of children finding the bones of a giant. They cannot replicate them, so they mimic them. Sumer was not the invention of civilization. Sumer was a cargo cult. The Sumerian priests, with their gods who taught them writing and law, were describing the fragmented memories of the previous world. They were trying to reboot a system that had crashed 1,000,000 years before. The timeline of history is not a ladder we climbed. It is a spiral we are descending into. We are not the inventors. We are the heirs. We call them gods, angels, jinn, or aliens, but they were simply the previous tenants. They were the civilization zero, the ones who laid the foundation. This concept changes the way we look at our own future. If an advanced non-human civilization could rise, span the globe, manipulate the very fabric of geology, and then vanish so completely that we argue about their existence, what does that say about us? We build with glass and steel. We store our knowledge on fragile silicon. We are fragile. If the Earth were to reset tomorrow, if the cycle were to repeat, what would remain of us in 10 million years? Would a future species find a plastic bottle in a layer of rock and wonder if it was a natural formation? Would they find the radioactive decay of our nuclear waste and wonder why the Earth had a fever? We are looking for the missing link in human evolution. But the missing link isn't biological. It is technological. The missing link is the civilization that connects the raw geology of the Earth to the impossible engineering of the megaliths. They were here. They lived, they built, and they died. Maybe they are the reason we have legends of reptilians or insectoids or beings of light. Maybe our DNA carries the trauma of watching them fall. Or maybe, just maybe, they didn't all die. If they were advanced enough to survive a planetary reset, they wouldn't have stayed on the surface. They would have gone where the catastrophe couldn't reach, deep underground, into the crust, into the mantle, or perhaps to the moon, watching their garden regrow, watching the new monkeys play with the stones they left behind. So when you look at the map of the world, remember it is a palimpsest. It is a manuscript that has been written over, erased, and written over again. The pyramids are not ours. The walls of Peru are not ours. The spheres in the mines are not ours. We are walking through a museum with the lights turned off. We bump into artifacts and make up stories to explain them, but the original curators are gone, where they are watching from the shadows, waiting for us to figure it out. The oldest civilization in the world wasn't human, and unless we learn to read the warnings they left in stone, the next civilization won't be human either.